You are listening to the Gritty Podcast, where we talk about all things gritty. Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Call. I've got Brad Hunt here beside me. Today's guest is Caleb Stillians. I met him up at in Oregon at a Leupold event where we went and shot rifles together. I was super impressed. Awesome guy, super talented, gifted shooter. On this episode, he talks about bows and rifle shooting. Mm-hmm. He taught me a few tricks when we were up there. I enjoyed his company. Really awesome guy. He's an outfitter or a guide in Alaska. Has a lot of experience. Has been on a lot of backcountry hunts, rugged hunts. Tough dude. Yeah. Super impressed. Love the guy. If you should give him a follow. Go check out his Instagram. Follow him there. He also has launched something called the Outfitter Services. You don't want to miss that. That tool is cool. You can get plugged in when you listen to this show. You're going to want to. I think there's everything on that app from that sort of from teaching you fitness to finding outfitters to go on special hunts. The prices are clearly listed. They do their vetting to make sure that they have a great listing there. It's a cool new tool. I think it's just cool. You just got to listen to the show.
It is.
You're going to enjoy the podcast, and you're going to get quite a bit out of it. And I'm excited to see what Caleb does next and how he grows. He's a go-getter. I love the guy. Listen to the show. If you like it, give him a follow. Check out his stuff. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and today we have Caleb Stillians on the podcast. Is that how you say it, Stillians?
You nailed it. That was perfect.
What's the origin of that name?
To be honest, I honestly don't know where it's from. I think it's somewhere like Europe. So it's a very uncommon name. It's funny, you look me up online. Uh-huh. I'm the only Caleb Stillians out there, so it's like a little ego boost.
Nice. Okay. Well, I met you just a few weeks ago in Oregon because I went down there to shoot rifles with Leupold, do a little shooting over a few day period. It was a really cool group of folks there. We had Randy Newberg. We had Danny Bolton.
Eva Shockey.
There was so Rihanna Carey. It was a very cool, Brandon. It was just a cool group of people. And I learned a lot in that short little window. I grew up hunting mostly with a bow and shooting a bow my whole life, and then got into rifle hunting a little later in life. And as much as I've spent some time behind a rifle, I have not spent some time behind a rifle like you have. Having watched you shoot, I was super impressed. Because how old are you, Caleb?
25.
Caleb, you're 25, and you look like, I'm just going to say it, like some kind of, when you get a rifle in your hand and you're like pinging targets at all these ranges, reloading bullet after bullet, I'm looking at you. You look like some dude out of a Western. It's your comfort around a rifle and a weapon like that is pretty impressive. It also opened my eyes as to how deficient I am and how much room I have for growth in my abilities behind a rifle. I was impressed, man. Where did you learn how to shoot? Before we do that, before we get into that, I want to first, I guess we should figure out, I should tell people that you're a guide out of Alaska. Yes, you're born there. Were you born there?
No. So I was actually born in Kansas City, Missouri. And then at age 2, we moved to Alaska, tiny town in the interior. And from 2 to 8, I lived in Alaska. And I fell in love with it in that time frame. And then mom and dad wanted to move back to the lower 48. So we moved back when I was 8. And I was like, I had the mountain bug. Like I was ready to go. So as soon as I turned 18, I went back up to Alaska and started the whole guiding thing. So I was just like, Mom and Dad, love you guys. I'm going to run up here and go kill bears and moose and mountain goat and everything else. So that's kind of how that all started.
Okay. So how long have you been guiding?
Since so I started the thing when I was 18, and then I got my guide's license at 19. And then so I guess that's 6 years going on 7.
All right. So you first hit my radar when you did the film with Glenn Everly from Everly Stock. Brad Hunt works for me, and at the time, I believe that Glenn did the sheep hunt with you. Brad worked at Everly Stock, and so he's good. He's friends with everyone there. He knows Glenn personally, and he was talking you up quite a bit and saying how what a stud you are and all this. And so I was like, oh, who is this person? And then I saw the video and I was like, wow, this kid's tough. I should say young man is tough. He knows what he's doing. Look at this hunt. And then I'll be honest, I heard you talk and I was a little surprised because like your speech is a little bit off compared to, you know, and so I was like, that caught me off guard because when I pictured you over here and then I heard your voice, I didn't expect that. And has that just been since you were born?
Yeah, it has. So I think what it is it's actually a speech impediment. And I went to like a speech therapy for a while. And then I was like, you know what? Like, screw it. Because what I noticed is people would know me like quickly off my voice. Like I could meet someone in person or they would watch my videos and then I would be interacting with them and they're like, I know you from your voice. So it actually works for advantage. And that's kind of like something that I try to tell, like, especially young people, because I also have dyslexia. It's like, you can look at these things and like, oh, woe is me, wah, wah, wah. Or you can look at it as like, hey, how do these actually help me? So like with lack of being able to like read efficiently, my memory is better than most. So I lean on that, and it's actually helped me out a lot. And I've doubled down on my personal skills. So it's like you can take these things that people would say are a disadvantage and you can use them for that. And I know that's like off a rabbit trail, but like you have something going on. It's like instead of like, oh, this is a disadvantage, it's like it is what it is. Figure it out and freaking get your ass in gear.
Well, dude, I can't tell you, you know, having seen you in action and then spending time with you, I'm really impressed with where you're at in life, how far you have come, and with your abilities. And you seem a lot older than 25 to me. So I think this is going to be a great show. It'll be fun to introduce people to Caleb Stillians for the first time who haven't heard of you. Go give Caleb a follow if you get something out of this show later today. And Caleb is spelled CALEB STILLIANS. And that's in fact your Instagram handle as well. Just Caleb Stillians, no spaces, done. So Caleb, okay, so around 25, you are now, and you've been guiding for quite a while. Tell me a little bit about when you were like where you grew up, how you came to be where you're at. Little history on Caleb.
Okay, yeah. So when I was up in Alaska the first time, obviously there's not much going on between 2 and 8. So like that, there's not a whole lot there other than just being a kid running around like a crazy man. It was always funny because my mom and dad bought me this bow and arrow with like big old blue suction cups on it, and I was a terror with that thing. Like I could hit anything with that little bow. So fast forward, moved back to Missouri. I was homeschooled, so really what that equated to is I did some school, but then I went out and got a job at a very young age and started like that working with older people, and I think that's why I have a older perspective of life than most 25-year-olds, because I think I started experiencing real life per se at a younger age. So fast forward, I'm 16, and then I'm approached by this archery coach for Sikoxy here in Missouri, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to come shoot competitive archery?" And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe." And I might have been 15, thinking back to it, and I was like, "Yeah, maybe." but I was homeschooled at the time. So then at that same point in my life, I wanted to be like a Navy SEAL, Special Forces. To do that, you have to have a high school diploma or so many college credit hours if you were homeschooled and got a GED. So I started exploring that. So I was like, well, I'm going to go and do public school for these last 2 years of my education career and just do all 4 years of that school in 2 years. That school was great. They created a custom plan where I was able to take most of those classes online. So I would just do the normal classes, take the ones that I had to take the state test, do those in person, and all the rest of them I would do online. So did that. And I've always shot guns and bows. Like, this is something I've always been passionate about. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a cowboy, professional hunter, or a soldier. So like those were my three things. So I practiced doing all of those as much as I could.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I ran away probably 15 times. And I was just, yeah, my mom's a saint, like dealing with me growing up.
All right.
So went to school, did competitive archery, and I was fortunate, and I've always been gifted at aiming and shooting. I won a full-ride scholarship to college, competed one state both years I did that, went to the national tournament. We won nationals, went to the world tournament, and started 299 out of 300. So tied the world record at that. It was fun. And so that, anyways, so that
299 out of 300.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
With a bow?
Yes, sir.
How old were you?
I was 18 when that happened. So getting old.
Okay. Because I swear, like, watching you, like, first of all, for context for folks out there, I watched Caleb take a freehand shot at a metal target. What was it, 550?
I think it was like 580 something is what I dialed.
580 yards offhand with a rifle. Dude shoots a metal target. Like that's, I can't even do it with a rest, Caleb. So what the hell, man? I feel like you've got a gift for sure. It seems so natural for you.
Well, the wind was the tricky part with that thing. It was blowing like 25 straight crosswind. I'm like, good night. It's like this shot would be doable, calm. And I was like, we just got to give it a try because who knows?
That's unbelievable. And you're equally talented with a bow, apparently.
I've always been gifted with aiming for whatever reason. Like I'm natural with that, and I can, whether it's playing darts or whatever it is, I'm usually pretty good at it.
I grew up in the middle of nowhere, kind of this little country spot in a rural spot in Oregon, and I grew up next to my cousin Ben, and we would go all over, climb trees, catch crawdads, shoot guns, bows, all that kind of stuff. And we spent most of our days outside. We lived in a tent for a while when I was a kid. Then we moved into a little tiny trailer. So most of my hours were spent outside because my mom was like, get the hell out of the trailer. Cause it was just a little tiny, like 16-footer. So we were just outside on all this land because they put all their money into buying this land. My parents had me when they were, 16, 17 years old. So I had young parents who weren't really quite ready to have kids yet. So I just grew up kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And my cousin had some dyslexia and some things like that where he had trouble reading. And similarly, just we went to college and he didn't last very long because it just didn't suit him. But when it came to athletics, when it came to just like speed and agility in the outdoors, wakeboarding, snowboarding, things like that, he's just phenomenal athlete. It was always gifted like that. So it's interesting to see, everybody has their skills. And as I've also learned, like, I consider myself fairly fit. And especially throughout my whole life, I've been a pretty good athlete. But then I go and I do some sort types of exercise or some sort of workout, like hike to the top of a mountain. And even when I train, there's like a cap. There's like an ability I have, and I'm maxed out on the gifts God gave me, but I'm kind of maxed out there. And in other areas, I'll continue to excel. And it's just, as I've gotten older, I've realized that some people just have gifts, and and we all kind of have gifts. It's really, can you find yours and then really take it to the next level? And beware spending too much time on the things that you are completely not gifted at to try to make those better. Cause I think sometimes I heard Tim Ferriss write in his book, The 4-Hour Work Week. He was talking about, okay, if you're super, super gifted in one area, in an area, and you really excel in that area, you could spend not very much time and become superb. Then on the flip side, you have some weaknesses. He's like, beware spending too much time trying to fix your weaknesses, because sometimes it'll take 80% of your energy to only improve your weaknesses by 10%. Whereas if you put that same 80% of your time into your skill set, you could go up to like 1,000% in skill level compared to other people. And so anyway, that's just a tangent to say, definitely I saw what you're talking about when it comes to aiming. That's interesting that it translates from bow to rifle and so on.
Yeah, the fundamentals of shooting well is the same with a slingshot or a rifle or a bow. It's all about consistency, follow through, and like building that system up. So like if you're shooting a bow, you need to have a subconscious system that you can do, like turned off, that's going to be the same every time. And finally, obviously, the more points of contact that you have, the better. And like you build this system, and then those principles carry over no matter what weapon. Even if you're throwing a dart at the wall, where you hold your elbow at, to how you hold that dart, to how you place your feet. Obviously, in hunting scenarios, it's always, might have to shoot like this sometimes. It's like, but those same principles of how you interact with that weapon needs to be somewhat the same, because the more consistency you have, the better aim you would be. And then on your comment with Tim Ferriss, I would say it always, you got to be who you need to be in each moment in time. So if the moment in time requires you to become better at what you suck at, then you need to become better at what you suck at. And two, you're at a point to where you can delegate, say in business, delegate that to someone that's naturally gifted at, say, sales, marketing, whatever it is. So it's like there's a saying, and I forget who said it, but don't do what you want to do what's required. So whatever situation that comes up, you need to be able to change who you are to deal with that situation the most appropriately, and then move forward.
Yeah, I always say that 40-year-old Brian, that's about the time I launch this podcast. I'll be 49 in about 2 months. So it's been about 9 years. And when I launched this whole thing, and it was successful, I've said, look, 40-year-old Brian succeeded where 30-year-old Brian would have failed, or where I did fail. And some of that was simply a factor of trying over and over and over and over again, lots of things until, something sort of stuck. But it was the years of, I went into accounting and finance. Well, I'm more of a creative person than I am, a logical, methodical person. I purposely worked on a lot of skill sets that don't come natural to me. I worked on all those weaknesses for years and years and years. And I believe that is what made it so that I could be successful in the space I'm in. My skill sets definitely lean toward conversation, toward creativity, filming, editing, producing content, that kind of area. But I couldn't do what I did if I didn't have the business skills and the ability to negotiate a contract or an agreement or to work on sales or to understand and follow through with all the parts of running a business. And I think a lot of creative people tend to fail on they're very talented photographers, video guys, that they're just good, and yet they end up not showcasing their talents and not getting themselves into the career they want or making good money because they don't know how to do all that stuff that they're just not built for. So I do believe that it'll always pay off to spend time working on your weaknesses. But I did reach a point, like you said, where I realized I just needed to be good enough to keep everything going.
Mm-hmm.
And then I needed to delegate. I needed to bring on someone else who's really, if I really wanted to excel, I needed to bring on someone else who can do this and who can do that, and start paying and hiring people who are really good at what I'm not good at. And then the business can really grow.
Absolutely. And like what you said, being good enough, well, that's going to translate into when you go to hire someone, because now you have the excess funds to delegate.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're going to know enough about that field. Say it's accounting, you brought up accounting, that you don't hire a jackwagon, because there's a lot of jackwagons out there that's going to be like, yeah, I know how to do this. And if you have no idea of what the lingo is,
Mm-hmm.
how actually, you don't even have to be an expert at it, but a good enough understanding of, hey, this person is full of crap, or this person, this seems to be switched on. I gave them this accounting problem and they did it correctly. And because you know enough how to do that. And so it's going to save you
it's
so
one
much
thing,
money.
It's one thing to know how to do it. It's another thing to have to do it every day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, when I owned a construction company, it got to a point where I know how to roof a house. I don't want to roof a house though, you know, but like you said, I had enough skill set to know who to hire and if they knew what they were talking about without having to, you know, but by my problem is when it's something I really, really loathe doing, I hate to do it. That's when it's like, I need to hire someone else to do it, because I'll put that thing off when I really shouldn't. But when you hire someone who's really skilled in that space, they're like, they can't wait to get on it. That's their thing. That's their jam. That's what they're made for. But yeah, I think it's important to develop those skills. So talk to me a little bit. Let's say there's a bunch of guys listening. Okay. Gals, they're listening and they're hearing that Caleb has some experience aiming and shooting and so forth. What would be like 3 things that you would say to those people that are struggling with hitting their targets, you think that they could work on that would make a difference?
Okay, let's do bow and rifle, because the order of how I would do things would be different. We'll start with rifle. So on a rifle, preference, make sure everything's safe, unloaded, muzzle is always pointed in a safe direction. Is going to be comfortable behind that weapon. The biggest thing that I see people, like, they have a gun and the gun, like, it's not isomorphic whatsoever. It's like totally separate. They look like they have a sledgehammer and they're trying to, so like it's not walking. So as to get comfortable with that weapon, understand how it works, how to cycle it. And you'll see a lot of people shoot and they'll be off cantered with the rifle. And so like you want to get used to, say you're standing up shooting, getting square behind the rifle and having the mass of your body be behind that gun. Because what happens is when you get too far to the side, that rifle will start to, the recoil is going through this piece of the shoulder, which is not very much mass, versus being behind it where it's pushing you straight back and you have your mass behind that. So that's going to be a big thing. And why I bring that up first is because if you have it like on this piece of your shoulder, that you're going to feel much more of that recoil and you're going to be more scared of that gun, especially if it's a high caliber gun. That's where you're going to start getting a lot of flinching. You're going to be scared of it. So understanding how to control that recoil by getting your body behind it and how to hold it. From there.
So you showed me that you had the gun, you were facing the target like straight on, and you put the gun out in front of you and you brought it into your shoulder.
Yep.
That's a whole lot. Most people, because we had a couple offhand shots when we were doing our little course, our shooting course, most people turned sideways and held it sideways, facing the target. That seems to be like the default position for most people, is to aim sideways, and you brought it forward right against you straight on. It was a very different position to take.
Yeah, so I can't take credit for that, because I used to shoot like this, because that's how my dad showed me to shoot when I was a kid, and that's like the old philosophy of shooting. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it does cause a problem with recoil. You can't control it as well. You see a lot of people get scoped because they're behind that. And again, the gun has less body mass to control it. It's kind of like have your buddy stand like this and have your buddy push right there and see what happens, versus standing straight on and then push. Like, it's totally different. So I got that tip from a good friend of mine that's former Marine Scout sniper, really good guy, solid. And that was about like 4 or 5 years ago. And that's where like the progression of learning never stops, because I've always been able to hit something. Like, this doesn't affect your aiming and your shooting accuracy, but it affects your recoil management, which if you like this on a big high caliber gun and you're getting the snot beat out of you, then it's going to cause different issues of like flinching, jerking the trigger, anticipation. So getting that recoil management under control is going to help you with the following steps that you need to do to become a better shooter. Because if you focus on like getting a smooth trigger pull, but you're scared of the gun and you're doing this, doesn't matter.
Right.
So and if you have a gun that you're just scared of, put it in the closet or sell it, and get one that you can actually like shoot well. Because if you can have a 416 Rigby, but if you can't hit the side of the barn, you might as well have something that you can control. So I would say getting that down is so important. And then the next step is going to be, if we'll stay on the theme of like free-handed shooting, is going to be get your form right, get behind the gun, and put in a dot on the wall. Say you have a dot, you put this on the wall. For the guys that are watching this, ladies on video, you're going to put that on the wall, and you're going to back up like 15 feet or 10 feet, however far you can. That makes sense. And you're going to bring your rifle up, and you're going to bring it, and you're going to aim at that dot. And you're going to be, usually when you start out, you're going to drift off of it pretty quickly. You're going to set the gun down, breathe, shake it out, pick the gun up, do it again. Aim at that dot, aim at the dot. You're going to have it naturally. Don't feel bad if you have drift. It's natural to have some drift. When you get off that dot, let down. And for some guys, they might need to start with a paper plate to begin with. Like your dot depends on where your skill level is at. And then as you improve, as the time goes along, you're going to be able to shrink that dot, and you're going to be able to hold solid for much longer doing that. So that's going to be big for the free-handed shooting. Now on the next step is, I would say, so not repetition shooting is a big thing. Not everyone has the time or the money to go out there and shoot a lot. So let's focus on dry fire practice, right? So guns unloaded, everything's safe. You're going to get used to aiming at a target, whether it's prone, standing, and you're going to squeeze that trigger off, and you're going to hear click, and you're still going to be aiming at that target. Then you're going to cycle the bow, for shooting quicker, leave the gun shouldered, and you're using your support hand. So if you're right-handed, to your left hand, to draw that rifle into your shoulder, you're going to take your right hand, cycle that bolt, and go back on that target, aim, click. And you're still going to be on that target. So follow through is on that. And it's the same with the bow. So switching over the bow, making sure everything is as close to perfect as being form correct. You're not doing a recoil on that. So I would say on your bow is make sure your bow is as balanced as possible. when I shoot my bow, I like to be able to release and it just slightly tips forward. It's not falling off to one side. It's not falling back. It just slightly tips forward. And then when I do that, it's you have your shooting system. So if you're shooting a thumb release, I'm gonna have this knuckle. I have a point on my jawline right here that knuckle goes into, and that's the same every time. And then I instead of putting like a big old kissel button on my bow, I would take the inside liner of a parachute cord and tie this tiny this loop it around and melt it on the string. It's small, but that is going in the corner of my mouth there, and it's just touching. So there's ankle point, and then my nose, the string, my nose barely touches it there, and then I'm looking through my peep sight. So building that system and making sure you have, in my opinion, 3 is better than 2 and 2 is better than 1. So figure out your ankle points on this side. And now you don't want to grip your bow when you shoot. You want to have it sitting in the hand. So what I will do, and this is how I do it, is I'll draw back and I'll leave my hand like so. So the bow is sitting right here in my hand. And you want, same thing with shooting a rifle, you want the bow to be as much in line with your wrist up through this as possible. You want your bone structure to be holding it. I've seen some people like twist it like this, extremely bad. You're probably gonna like get your arm one of these days, or to kind of have it flare. Flaring it out's tougher because you have so much weight in there behind it, but just work on your bone structure is what is controlling that bow. And now, so you have your arrow knocked, you got full draw, you're aiming. And one of the biggest things that helped me when I was competing is understanding what a perfect shot feels like. So going up to a big round barrel and, I'm shooting my groups, everything is great. Well, now I'm just gonna draw my bow back, aim at a dot, close my eyes, shoot. Same thing. And as you get better and do this, like I would like group arrows touching one another, sometimes Robin Hood, after I've closed my eyes, because you got everything perfect in line. You know what the perfect shot. You've done the aiming drill. Same thing with the rifle is the same thing with the bow, on holding on the dot, and as you drift off, you let down. Same thing. Like that drill is a principle of shooting across the board, is building that neural pathways and that muscle memory to aim well and hold solid. So one thing that I don't know if a lot of people teach or not, but I've done that I like is I'll draw back. I have all my ankle points and my shooting system down. And when I shoot, I watch my arrow hit the target through the housing itself.
The sight.
The sight, yeah, because it's going to move a little bit. And like I said, have the bow, way I set mine up is tilt slightly forward. And I watch that arrow hit the target through that. And my groups get so tight, and every now and then I'll get out of that rhythm, and my groups will open up a little bit because people start looking, looking through that arrow. So build that follow through up. So make sure you on bow, 3 points of contact for me is what works best. Everyone's going to be different on the face, but more is hypothetically better than less. And do that same aiming drill. Aim at that target. I guess there's 4 points on bow. Aim at that target, and then the third one is to shoot with your eyes closed, to really pay attention what those perfect shots feel like. And you just you break everything down, and then what's super comfortable. So then when you are shooting in a competition, or say sometimes in hunting you have to force a shot, like that's just the fact of it. So I'm not going to say if it doesn't feel perfect, don't do it, because sometimes you just have to perform when something doesn't feel well. But the more that you've built up that muscle memory, the more likely that uncomfortable shot is still going to be money. And then that last one is that follow through, watching the arrow hit the target, either through the sight housing itself or with that bow still up.
Yeah. I like it. So let's talk about on the rifle thing. When I watch you shoot, I didn't think that someone could reload, acquire the target, and shoot that quickly. Well, I assume some people could, but I'm watching you do that. It's like, let's say the target is 400 yards out. You're reloading and hitting the target so fast. How are you keeping the crosshairs? How are you getting it there so fast and keeping it there for that second shot? Like, I would think they hit in such quick succession. The reloading action has to move it off target, right? Like the bolt moves, and yet it's like, it seems like you barely have that bolt, the new one chambered, and it's gone.
Yeah.
How's that working?
Yeah. So the easiest thing is the gyroscope at a lower power, because especially as a high caliber rifle, especially when you get into like 375 H&H and higher, you can't take up all that recoil. It's going to push you off target. So the closer that you, like, the more power you have zoomed on your scope, is the harder it's going to be to recoil because your field of view is smaller. So if you dial that scope back, you shoot, you go off target, you come back down, that target is still somewhere in your field of view. So now you can quickly get back on it and then bang. So that's what the easiest thing to do. The other one is that I see a lot of guys that come out hunting, is that they will look for the animal in the scope. They'll be sitting here, I call it fishing. They'll be fishing for the animal, like just all over the place. Don't do that. It's like you have your scope at the lowest power always until you're ready to zoom up. You look at the animal, and I'm going to demonstrate it like standing up or sitting up, but it's the same no matter what position you're in. You're looking at the animal, and then you bring your gun up or you drop into it, and that line is going to put that animal into your field of view, and then you make your micro adjustment.
It's strange it's not strange, I guess. I can recall being much younger, having that problem. When I take a guy that is a great cameraman, but hasn't filmed a lot of long distance, hasn't spent a lot of time behind a spotting scope, or hasn't used a lot of glassing, but spent time a lot of glassing, you'll see them struggle to put the animal in the scope or in the camera lens. And same thing, when I see an animal with my eyes, I bring my binoculars. I keep my eyes on the animal and just bring the binoculars up to my eyes. I don't like bring my binoculars up and then look for the animal, right? It's same thing with the camera. I'm looking at it. I'm aiming the camera exactly in line. I can tell it's about the right height. Then I look into the camera and it's there. It's almost always there. So you're saying the same thing when it comes to the target. Is you're looking at the target, and like you said, you're dropping right into you're lining it up before you look into the scope.
Absolutely. And as you drill that, like, it's practice, right? Everything comes down to practice. You're going to have to practice to make that second nature. So when, like, I don't think about it. Like, when I'm out shooting, I do not think about it. It's like, there's a target, range it, call 400 yards, 800 yards, doesn't matter. I'm going to dial my dope, and I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to drop in, and I shoot. Like, I'm not thinking about it actively. So it's going to take some preparation before season to have yourself there. So then when you're out hunting, you see that elk at 300 and some yards, like, you don't think about it. You just bring your rifle up, and it's like, oh, there's the elk, and you're good to go.
Same thing with binoculars. Same thing with this, I think, with optics. Because you'll see guys see it, and then they'll just be hunting, and it's painful to watch as they're trying to find it. And if you're taking the right approach, you see it, and you just bring the binoculars up, and you're in it right then.
And here's a trick for people that, so like, I have two different spotting scopes. Both of them are loopholed. One's like the Mark 4 12x40, which is the straight angle one, like where they stack. That one's very easy to line up and find your target. And then I have the Santium
VX5.
VX5. 55 power is the highest power that goes to. I don't remember. I think it's 27 on the lowest. But so it's a banana shape, and banana shapes are harder to find your thing. So what I would typically do is I'll have it slightly canted, and then when I go look, I'll be looking still straight on because my spot scope is slightly canted, and I look at the animal, and I'm imagining a sight on the end of that spot and scope and put it on it, and then again I just look into it that way.
Yeah.
So that's if anybody that's listening has problems finding an animal with the banana shaped spot and scope, that's a way to speed that up.
I think it's absolutely a critical skill that you can practice too before you go hunt. Spend time acquiring target, acquiring the animal in your spotter, in your binos. For cameramen, it's obvious who has spent a lot of time. Like Ryan Lampers hasn't spent a lot of time filming, but he has no problem putting an animal in a long lens in seconds because the skill is the same, whether he's using his spotter or the camera. And a cameraman who knows the camera backward and forward is still like, can't find the animal, and the shooter's wanting to shoot, and are you on him? Are you on him? And the cameraman cannot do it, like, for the life of him. It's at some point I decided, okay, I want to teach a hunter how to film instead of take a cameraman and teach him how to hunt. Because at the end of the day, I found for us, it's easier to teach a hunter how to film than it was to teach a guy who's a really good cameraman how to hunt. Like it's just at least for the level and the quality and the type of thing we're trying to capture.
And it's cheaper. So it's like the guy that knows how to hunt might do a 70% job as an okay camera guy that doesn't know how to hunt. Well, when you invest, I mean, let's face it, hunting's expensive, like several $1,000s into a hunt. You might do it cheaper, but usually, time you figure out the grand scope of gear, preparation, planning, time that goes into it, it's a lot. So that 70% of that hunter that's filming still gets the job done. You still get your animal, you have your footage. It's not as good as could be. Maybe there's times where it's slightly out of focus and it's annoying, but flip that cameraman does a 70% job of hunting and 100% job of filming, but that 30% deficiency causes you not to get an animal, which now means
especially
you just wasted it.
Especially one of the reasons I had moved to finding a hunter was I wanted a bow hunter, someone who has spent a lot of time spotting stock. And Brad had killed like 17 bulls in 17 years with his bow in a row. Lots of years with the rifle, so he has plenty of skill in shooting with the rifle and a bow. It was so easy. It was so nice to bring him along because he could figure out the camera pretty quick. But what I was experiencing in the past was being in bow range. You have to understand, you have to have done it so many times that you know when to move, when not to move. You have to have a stalking ability and a patience and a skill set that takes years and years and years to develop. But pointing the camera, like you said, it's not the crispest shot. Sometimes it's a little blurry sometimes, but at least you're getting it. At least you're getting the bow kill on camera over the shoulder. It's sloppy, but at least it's there. Like you said, if you have a really, two left feet cameraman, super technical, but is having a hard time hacking it day after day, is too loud, moves at the wrong time, stands up when the animal comes and they run off, all that kind of stuff. It's brutal. And so after a while, I was like, no, you got to have a hunter. You got to have someone who can really hunt and run a camera, and then you have like that magic mix.
Right.
That's why guys like Adam Foss, for example, the man is a killer with his bow and a hunter, but also a really talented cameraman. When you combine those two together, now you have a really capable camera guy.
Oh yeah. If there's young guys listening to this, if you're a savage, meaning you respectful, you do what is asked, and you're not lazy, and you like, if you need to run up that mountain, you're gonna run up that mountain. Yes, so I'll go do it. And all talented with the camera, like you can go find a job pretty much anywhere. What I ran into that's been super annoying is people that think they're more gifted than what they are. So then they come up with like an entitlement that's not, that's not my job. I'm here to do this. And it's like, you're here to be a part of this and capture that. Like, I'm sure you ran into that, and it's so annoying. It's like, freaking be humble, do what is asked, and get it. And if you do that, like, the world is at your fingertips. If you're someone that works hard, respectful, and is actually good at your craft, or at minimum willing to learn. If you're willing to learn, people will teach you. Like, no problem. Like, if you had, if you needed a camera guy, and a 19-year-old kid said, and you're at least competent of, here's the record button, put an auto, like whatever, and he's like showing up and is not like expecting to get paid freaking $800 a day. It's like, well, you have, that's what these guys are getting paid, but they're also doing X, Y, and Z. So it's like, go up, show, be hungry, and there's going to be doors open up, like, just that blow your mind.
I think like that's what happened with Brad Hunt. He basically showed up at my doorstep and was like, hey, I'll work for free. I just want to learn. I'll work for free. I was like, at first I said, no. Well, I don't really have work. I feel bad having someone just work. And he just kept coming back, just persistent. And he said, I'll work for free. I'm like, all right, well, fine. Then I'll put you to work. For 4 months, 5 months, I had him work lots of hours. After he finished a full day at the railroad, he'd come to the office and he'd work another 4 or 5 hours that night. And I was working long hours during that time, trying to keep things afloat. And most of it was spent teaching him how to do it, because he doesn't know how to make film. He doesn't know how to edit, use the apps and all that kind of stuff and the tools. So didn't know how to run a camera. So for months I taught him a lot. And then he leveraged that and made himself even more valuable. But like you said, he just was a savage about working hard and the willingness to learn. Those two things together. And now he's his photography skills, his camera skills, his combine that with his hunting abilities and all of that. And you have there's a lot of exciting things, I think, that will come down the road. But it started out with just a hard working Idaho farm kid who's like working at the railroad day in and day out, saying, after I put in all these grueling hours on the railroad, after starting my shift at 4 a.m., I'll come to your place at, 4 p.m. and I'll work till 9 and repeat day after day after day for months. And it's like, how can you say no? Okay.
And another thing is, like, hear so many people, especially in my age category, talk about burnout. And I'm like, you guys don't even do anything. It's like, so if you, someone in that age category that listening to this, like, just quit. Like, get that out of your head. Like, that's all a bunch of BS that, for whatever reasons, around. It's like, there's people that from different generations that went through literally like hell and back, like Normandy, in the trenches, like spent years in a trench getting shot at by Germans, by whatever. So it's like, when you sitting there like, oh, I'm so tired, I can't do anymore. It's like, excuse my French, but shut the fuck up and get to work. Like, come on.
It reminds me of somebody said this the other day. I think it was, I listened to a lot of podcasts, but one of them was Patrick Bet-David, and he said, it's easier than ever to stand out. If you're in your 20s, 20 to 25, it's easier than ever to stand out and kick ass than it ever has been, because so many of your peers are so pathetic that you just have to be an average savage and you're going to excel beyond. most of your peers, because they're so weak, they're so privileged right now that they're not willing to put in put in the work. So it doesn't take much for the generation you're in, Caleb, to really stand out even.
Mm-hmm. No, and like, don't let that be a crutch to be like, oh, this is like good enough. Like,
yeah,
continue to improve. Like, just keep going. Like, there's some like people that do some work for us, and they are what I would call that average savage.
mm-hmm.
And I think one thing that I've noticed, what separates the people that are like, you can just tell the sky's the limit for them.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that are like the average savage is by the average savage has done some work, read a lot of books, and has the talk. And since they have the talk, they constantly trying to show how much they know.
Yeah.
And then the savage has read the books, is actively doing as much work as possible, and then is asking really good questions, and listening and learning and being a sponge. I think the being the sponge part and the work is if someone's listening to this that's like in a no matter I guess what age and wants to improve, is like that's I think is what's going to put you in a rocket ship, is that work ethic, and then not needing to get the ego boost of telling other people how much you know, just asking really good questions.
Yeah. When you guide, so let's say someone wanted to hunt with you, how does that work?
Yeah, so I am not an outfitter. However, I've decided to do what I am doing is I work with some of the best outfitters in Alaska. So if someone wants to come on, let's just use Glenn. Glenn wanted to do a doll sheep hunt. I'm really good friends with an outfitter up in the Brooks Range that has a phenomenal area. It's like, hey, Riley, this guy wants to go kill an awesome ram. He's a good guy. My schedule is available to take him out. This is what I need to make that happen. And then he's going to reply like, yeah, let's do this, have the opening, or maybe next, like this. So that's how I do that. And why I did that way is in Alaska, there's 3 types of land. You have state land, you have federal land, and then you have native land. Most native land is already tied up because those relationships have already been built. Federal land comes up every 10 years where you can apply and get that spot, but you have to have a lot of time in that area. So when I sat down and looked at it, I'm like, I want to take really good people out and go in the best spots. So I just started contacting outfitters, working with them, and now where that's led is I'm friends with a lot of good people that have fantastic federal areas where they're the only people, guides that can operate in that area. Well, that would take me till I was like 30 to 35 to even have a chance at getting those spots. But now it's like, well, I just want to go out and kill really big animals and have fun with great people. So I'm getting that accomplished with doing it that way.
Your story reminds me a little bit of Dustin Rowe, who I've had on the podcast a few times. As he got older, he was able to buy his own, outfitter area. So he's in the Cassiar Mountains, and he does the backcountry BC and beyond outfit up there. And I've been lucky to hunt with that crew before. But early on, I believe, he would do similar things where someone would hire him and then he'd go find a sheep somewhere with somebody that would bring him on to do that. That's really cool. Do you think you'll own your own outfit at some point? Is that a goal of yours, or do you have different goals?
So I've showed you outfitter services. That's where my energy and effort is going into. For people that don't know, it's think of it as similar to an Airbnb for hunting, fishing, and training. You can go on there. You can find hunts in Africa, hunts in Alaska. So that's where my time and energy has been, because with these phenomenal people I've been able to guide, one of my goals is to be well off, because I think I can do a lot of good with that. So I need something that's extremely scalable to do that.
Yeah.
And this is. So to answer your question, yes, at some point, but it's going to be a while. Because you can't be a good part-time outfitter. You can't. Like, in my opinion, at least in Alaska, I don't know about in other places, but in Alaska, to be a really good outfitter, you can't be just doing it part-time and winging it. So therefore, I've decided to table that.
Yeah.
Because I could have got my registered license, I think 3 years ago, something like that. So, but I've decided not to, because flip side of it is, when you have your registered license, it also makes some, not all, but some outfitters uncomfortable, because now you're all eligible to take their spot and compete against them. I'm like, I don't, I'm not going to compete against you guys. I just want to come in,
right,
take awesome people hunting, make you money.
Because in Alaska, it's a little different than Canada, in the sense that, I think in Canada they sell concessions, which is an entire area that then the outfitter owns, and no other outfitter can.
I think there's the Yukon, and I think it goes slightly different from provinces. I'm not 100% positive, but I know like Northwest Territories, there's like only 20 outfitters up there, period. Right. And then it changes like.
But Alaska's U.S. It's different, correct?
Yeah. So Alaska, you have state land, which pretty much anybody can go operate on. So then it becomes a game of getting so far out that no one else is willing to take on the logistical challenge to get there. And then there's federal concessions where you're the only outfitter that's allowed to hunt in this area. And then there's the native lands where you go and you go to the native corporation and you negotiate a deal. If we come into this spot and take 5 brown bears each year, we're going to pay you X amount of money, regardless.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
So, go ahead.
So let's go back to the outfitter services and talk about that a little bit more. Let's dive into that a little bit more. I've been on it. I've used the app, or I've gone on the site, I should say. Tell folks what it is again. Start kind of ground up. Where did it come from? What's this idea?
So I went, and like I mentioned, I worked with a lot of outfitters to find the good ones. So I was at two of the big hunting shows that are pretty well known, and I met this guy, biggest booth for Alaskan outfitter, big lodge, big yacht, could talk the game really good. I'm like, and I was 20 at the time. I was like, this guy must have it going on. I'm gonna work for him. Went out. The guy's a crook, doesn't care about the clients, doesn't care about the guides. He's just there to, pass a paycheck, and then good luck, put you in bad situations, etc.
I think that was actually more common. I think prior to social media, even I remember being younger, going to trade shows, and you'd have a guy with a fancy booth, and all his stuff there, and it looked legitimate, and it was some caribou hunt in Quebec or whatever, and you'd be like, how much is it? And there's no way to really research that person. They might have a few phone numbers you could call, but you don't know if they were legit. And then you pay this money, and then it turns out to be a disaster and terrible hunt, and they don't take care of the hunter, and they swindled you out of some money. Nowadays, it does seem like if you have the right contacts and you can do a little bit of research, like with what you're providing, you can find out through more reputable online, through reviews, through forums, like, oh, that dude is bad. That outfitter is a fraud. And it seems like you could avoid these things better than ever. So you witness the same thing. You're seeing basically outfitters who unfortunately swindle people out of their money. They overpromise and underdeliver, and that's a thing that you recognized.
Yeah, absolutely. a problem in the industry, and it's like the majority of outfitters are fantastic, phenomenal people, but it's just like any industry, there's bad apples in there. So the idea is like, to make it easier for people that want to go hunting to be able to find it, see how much it costs, and then also weed the bad apples out via a free market approach. Because after this scenario happened, there was like two options. Go and legislate to make it harder for these people to exist. But I'm under the opinion that more government, usually this messes things up and that fixes anything. So how do I free market approach solve this problem? That's where it came from, is so people can get on there, find good guides, book good hunting trips, whether it's hunting, fishing, or training, and go on those trips and build that reputation for both parties. So you can kind of think of it as an Uber review system, where if someone does a good job, they're going to have a good reputation on client and guide. If a guy does a bad job, or the client is extremely not good to work with, then he's going to have a reputation, and fewer guys are going to have to deal with that nightmare and safety hazard.
Yeah. How is it working so far?
Good. Yeah, really good. We're growing. We have hunts in 48, Alaska, Canada, Africa. I think we got our first South American outfitter on there. So it's going really good. Extremely excited to see where this goes.
I have it brought up here on my phone. Yep. And for people that are watching on the YouTube video, they should be able to see it on the video here. But I can put in a search. I can say, whatever I'm interested in. You've got, like, just scrolling through, like, on the landing page, baited brown bear hunt, 9-day hunt, how much it costs per person, Alaska remote camp, moose hunting, the per person costs, lodge base, brown bear, grizzly, Cape buffalo, turkey, Osceola, alligator. I mean, the list goes on and on. A trap line and predator hunt. Yeah, very cool place to go. And what's your vision for it long term? Where would you like to see outfitter services go?
Yeah, it's going to end up being a household name, where it's the place to go to book your next epic experience. Because that's really, like, the goal is to make it easier for everyone across the board to go out there and make their bucket list happen, and go with people that are going to make that bucket list trip actually be phenomenal. So that's honestly, like, I talk to so many people, and a lot of people that are not in the, let's just say, higher end hunting crowd, always say, I would love to do that, but I don't know anybody, and I don't know where to begin to even make that happen. Well, this is a tool for them to help bridge that first gap. And we have other things that are going to, like, come out in the future that I won't get into detail on, that's going to continue to help them. Like, you can go through and you can hit those little crosshairs on the top right hand corner, and it's going to add it to your bucket list. So now you have these goals in place, and, like, yeah, this is my bucket list. Now I'm going to make it happen, and we're going to even make it easier to make it happen in the future as we continue to develop.
Yeah, it looks cool. I'm just on it. You can go down the rabbit hole, and just sort of dream about some of the hunts and shop and kind of look at it. And, there's certain ones where I'm like, I can't afford that. I'm not in that class, but I look at others and I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. That's right up my alley. And you could save up a little bit, and it's nice to just come to this place. And what are you doing to ensure that if someone like me came on here and signed up to go on a hunt like this, that I'm not going to get screwed over?
Yeah. So we do as much vetting as possible, but this, like, I shoot people as straight as possible. It's because if it's like all these people that are on here, I got to go hunting with them to make sure that they are good beforehand. That becomes into a logistical nightmare. So what's going to happen is just like Airbnb, you continue to grow, you continue to push to like, we do our background as much as possible. We talk to them. We have an interview process. Hey, we've done as much due diligence that we can that this guy's legit. And it helps that, you know, I've had 6 years in the industry, so I'm way better at like sniffing out someone that's full of shit than I was when I was 20. So, but that's not to say that some people are not going to fall through the cracks. But what happens is like Airbnb, someone that's not a good host pops on there, they get a bad reputation really quick, and then they cease to exist. And we make that very clear to every outfitter that comes out. It's like, hey, if you're not who you say you are, you shouldn't be on this platform, because you will have a reputation that follows you. And then that's going to stay there. Like, people are going to be able to look it up and say, hey, this guy was a jackwagon.
Right.
So it's like, if you are a jackwagon, don't sign up, because it's not going to help either one of us. So that's how we're doing it. So
every year, basically, this will get stronger and stronger, because it's sort of like eBay. I remember when eBay first came on, because I'm old, and eBay was there, and it was online, and you could put anything you had that you wanted to sell on eBay. And I remember seeing things on eBay, and you got in on the auction and you went to buy. And I'll tell you, back then when the internet was newer, and I was like, ain't no way I'm going to buy someone's, you know what? I don't know this guy. I'll give him $500 for this whatever. And I remember, I think I bought a pair of Swarovski binoculars, and I was like, it was like, at the time it was like $1,700 for a pair of Swaros, and I wanted these ELs or whatever. They're way expensive now, but I wanted them, and eBay was an option. But I was like, how do I know I'm not going to give some stranger $1,500 and he just disappears with it? Because early on, that's what it felt like. There was, how do I know? It's just some electronic advertisement. Like, I don't know. And what would happen later, though, as eBay grew, and these things did happen, people got ripped off early on, you know, buying things constantly. But over time, when you had a 5-star rating, and you could see like, this eBay seller has 100% positive feedback, and he sold over 1,000 items, then you felt really confident, because they don't want to damage their business. And commerce is 100% a healthy, effective, marketplace is almost entirely driven, and the foundation for it is trust. Trust is what makes it go round. That's what makes things like, you know, shopping online work now, is trust. I know if I give you my money, you're going to give me back the product. And now it feels pretty natural. I mean, it's natural as hell to buy online. But I remember early on, it seemed like the Wild West. But in this case, with each of these outfitters that you have on here, as people do the hunt and they leave reviews, that outfitter really wants to, it holds them accountable, right? If they're getting sales through outfitter services, and their business is able to grow and to do well because of this hub of activity where they get to play, well, they're going to want to ensure that they have good reviews. So there's this process by which, you know, and then if you suck, you're going to get exposed pretty quickly.
Oh, immediately. It's going to follow you. And also for people that are looking to get a hunt, we are creating a verified outfitter list, which is, you can't, period, or not ever sell, like, my opinion out. I have to know you personally, or someone that I trust with my life, that's a guide, that's guided for that person, has got to recommend you. So it's like they've had to like know and work for that person to be on that verified list. And like why I'm doing it that way is because if I saw going out and like going with outfitters, and they know hey, Caleb Stillians coming out, founder of Outfitter Services. We better make sure this is a good job. Then it kind of even like it taints that, because now people can fake it for that one hunt. But if it's guys that I know that have walked for that outfitter, like you know this, like if you walk with someone, you find out like pretty quick like what's up. So that way it's that another layer of confidence for outfitters to kind of bridge that gap of like, hey, these people on here, someone that I trust with my life, vouch for them, or I vouch for them myself. So that way you give some confidence as those reviews, as people come in, start to develop that reputation.
I'm looking at this 95% success rate mountain lion hunt, Wyoming premier, these regions, black bear hunt of a lifetime. You have all these various, mountain lion. You've got the Coues deer, black-tailed deer, spot and stock, Sitka. You got a Fognak Island hunts. You pretty much have a wide array of hunts available. What I do like is the price is right there on there. Just so, oh yeah, that's in my range or that's not in my range. There's no like, well, how much money do you got? How much is your hunt? Well, how much money do you have? I just want to know up front, what the value is here, what I'm getting. But as I scroll through the Outfitter Services site here, I can see that train for your next backcountry adventure. Ridgeline Athlete provides online training. I can see things that aren't necessarily hunting. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the goal is just to help people accomplish their bucket list, whether it's hunting or whether it's we have side-by-side tours in Arizona that go see native ruins out in the middle of nowhere. Maybe we don't have any skydiving trips on there yet, but if you want to go skydiving, or maybe your dreams to go overlanding, the goal is to have everything there with whatever someone wants to do that's in the outdoors, that's epic, to get on there and find it and make it happen.
Yeah, this is wild. You even have various training type courses, defense, you have weapons courses, exercise. You got African game as well, duck, Canada and the US, Africa, a little bit of everything. So whitetail, pronghorn, bear. So how are you getting the word out? I mean, how are you getting these outfitters to sign in and become part of Outfitter Services? Let's say there's some outfitters right now that are listening, that are like, I think I want to be part of what Caleb's doing. I want to be part of this marketplace. How does that work?
Yep. So you go to outfitter.services, you'll go to the site, hit create an account, or I think it says sign in, and then underneath sign in, you're gonna hit sign up. You're gonna create it's similar to opening up an Instagram account. So it's gonna be a generic account, right? So then once you do that, you're gonna hit become a host. From become a host, you fill in your business information, put your website in, like just that generic business info. And then submit your first experience. And then from there, you have to give us about a week. And then we'll do our due diligence, set up a call with you. And again, like this is not that for someone that's listening to this, because I could understand, like, if you're a guy that's done it a lot, you're gonna be like, who's this young kid to be able to like, it's nothing personal. It's just, we have to do our due diligence with absolutely everyone. It's not an insult to who you are as a guide. It's just covering our bases. So that's what that system would look like. We would follow back up with you, and then at that point decide if you're going to become a part of the marketplace or not. And there's no way to say, hey, you're for sure going to get approved or you're not. You just gotta get the process started. It's simple. Like it takes 11 minutes to post your experience. So you probably have 15 to 20 minutes in to getting everything submitted. And then from there,
You do your research and so on.
Yep.
It says, like you have in here, a 14-day Talkeetna Mountains expedition, which is just to go backpacking, basically. Yep. And there's all kinds of stuff on here. When I click on highly rated, like the star, what does that mean?
So that's going to be, we haven't finished developing that. It's been put on hold, but that's going to be the guys that consistently have a great reputation. Like these, you don't want to sort through, you just want to see the people that already have a pre-existing reputation. Mm-hmm. I want to see what those guys are. You just click that, and that's going to bring you the cream of the crop, people that have been on here a long time that have consistently performed.
That's sweet. Well, Caleb, I'm excited to see this thing grow. Excited to see more and more. We need to get more and more people exposed to this, more outfitters on board. It seems like more and more, in my opinion, more and more hunters are looking for these adventures, but they just don't quite know. They've never done it before, or they've never done it out west. They've never gone for a certain species. Or maybe like in the case of a mountain lion, that's not a very good spot and stock hunt. You're going to need to hire someone with dogs or have someone that has some other skill set involved. And it seems like the demand for hunting, especially these types of adventures, has only gone up over the last 10 years, I would say. So there's some serious demand and for people to be able to come on here and then kind of see what's available and give it a shot. That's pretty cool.
No, absolutely. And if you guys have questions, if you call that number and you'll get a hold of someone on the team. And if it's like you want to ask me directly, as of right now, I can still schedule that in. So if there's something that you want to ask directly, just contact us through the site, and I'm happy to answer questions. You just have to be lenient that it's gonna, we'll schedule something. I have my calendar up where you can get on there.
I love it. And so we have on here the link I'll put in the description field of this on the YouTube or on the video version of this show, because we're on Rumble too. It's taking us a little bit of time to get that channel established, but if you go to the description fields of our videos, you'll find links to outfitter.services there. Now, if someone clicks that, goes there, it looks like it's pretty self-explanatory. If they want to reach out to you through, let's say, Instagram, is that something they can do?
Yeah. You can shoot me out a message and I will get back to you as soon as possible, like pretty quick. You reach out to me there, email me directly at caleb@outfitter.services, or hop on there. I would recommend going on there and creating an account. It's pretty cool because when you go on the OFS and create an account, you get to select what you're interested in. So then that's going to be what pops up to the top of your feed. So if you're more into you want to just see training, you want to learn how to shoot a firearm better.
Yep.
And that's the only thing you care about. We're not going to show you a $40,000 brown bear hunt. We're going to show you all the firearm classes that are available. So go in there, customize it, so then you see the stuff that you're interested in as we continue to add on more instructors, outfitters, and guides.
And it looks like on here I see, so the website is outfitter.services.
Yes, sir.
So pretty easy to remember. I mean, but we will put the link in the description field. So let me ask you some questions, Caleb. Given that I live in the lower 48 of the United States, and the odds of drawing a sheep tag is virtually zero, even though I try every year. So I have questions. You've hunted sheep now, being a guide and being in Alaska. You showed me a sheep earlier that's behind you. And so tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was blessed and had a really successful fall last year, and had 9 days to get out in the mountains and tromp around a little bit. So I got flown out, and yeah, I went out and got a sheep, and
Well, let's see it.
great.
Show it to me.
Yeah, okay. Get that. I got to get the Euro amount done to it, but
dang, that's cool. That's very cool. So I'm jealous, definitely jealous. Let me ask you this. So of the sheep, you got your bighorn, you got your stone, you got your doll. Of the three, which one is the one that gets you the most excited?
Yeah, so there's the desert, which is awesome to hunt as well. I would say all of them do. What I try to tell people when it comes to hunting is just like, because people always like, well, what should I hunt first? And I'm like, what have you dreamed the most about?
Yeah.
And then whatever that is what you should hunt first. On the sheep side of things, I've been blessed to be able to guide quite a few sheep hunts, for doll sheep hunts, and I love them, and I love hunting that animal. It's awesome. But now, like, I kind of got an itch for a stone sheep. So now I want to figure out how to make that happen. So hunting for me is less about getting the trophy as it is about getting out there and having a crazy memory that I'd be like, yeah, I went out and I after 45 days of hunting beforehand, so like 15, like every day hunting, like up and down mountains, each sheep hunt. After that, then I'm gonna go out late season in September, where winter's coming in, get caught in the snowstorm, have to walk through snow, be worried about can the pilots even come back in and pick me up, because once it snows so far, then like on wheels, you can't land on wheels anymore. But if it's not deep enough, they can't land on skis because you're going to hit it on the rock or something. So it's that weird in between stage where it's like, am I going to be stuck? So all this happened, and it's like you have these memories, and it's like, yeah, I hiked 65 miles, and then I found one, and then I got it, and now I'm having to pack, about 60 to 75 pounds of gear plus 130 pounds of sheep, counting the cape, the mount, the head, and all the meat with it. So now you're packed somewhere around 200 pounds. Oh, I had to pack that out. Oh, by the way, I found a plane crash during this hunt that, from everyone's knowledge, no one's ever found before. Yeah. So like stuff like, and it's like, yeah, and then I'm packing this heavy pack out, and I'm tired, and I'm feeling sorry for myself because my knees hurt, blah blah blah, and you just gotta be like, tell yourself, quit being a bitch and let's go, because like no one's gonna, like, what are you gonna do? Hit their SOS button? Like, no. So it's like all those memories and experiences stack. So then, in the future, like everything starts, which I'm somewhere in between, because everything starts to seem like such a small thing. Like something pops up, like that's not even a problem. Is anybody gonna die? Why are you getting stressed out about this? Let's just figure it out. Which has been very, very useful, but at the same time, then it's also hard to get excited about things. So it's like, okay.
Well, there is a certain confidence that comes from, like you said, stacking up all that experience. You're right. Like, there is no anxiety, trepidation, fear that I feel the way that I did years and years ago, because whether it's Alaska or I feel at home in the wild, and I feel at home getting dropped in the middle of nowhere. I feel at home, barely having a communication satellite device to get, like, the being where grizzly bears roam or brown bears. It just, those things stack to such a point now where let's say something sort of is happening, the weather, the snowstorms, you're stuck inside. That doesn't, like you said, it's just not that big of a deal. None of that stuff is that hard or intimidating, or it's just another day.
What's like that video you showed me? We've both had bear encounters, several bear encounters, and it's like, so that bear potentially was about to try to eat your ass. And same thing with the experiences on my end. Then you come back to everyday life and like someone has this issue, you have an issue pop up and you're like, really not that big of a deal. Like, so someone flipped me off.
Right. Well, it puts it all in perspective, all the emails and all the little things that didn't get done. And I find that I can sort of get a little bit of anxiety as time goes by regarding my, just life, kids, and so on. And then when I go leave for 2 or 3 weeks or a month and I come home, all of a sudden, all those things that seemed so important to me when I left fall into perspective. And I realize none of it really matters at the end of the day. Only a few things really matter. And by going off and having these adventures, I think that it rejuvenates our soul and changes us in a way that really does help us refocus and focus and spend time on the things that really matter in life, that really bring us value. And we don't get distracted or stressed out or down by the stuff that really doesn't matter at the end of the day. And I think there's no substitute for just going to these remote places, being disconnected from civilization, going through intense levels of discomfort that really bring you those perspectives.
I think doing these like crazy trips mixed with like whatever reason I like World War II and World War I. It's like fascinating to me. So like reading a book like Man's Search for Meaning by I believe his name is Viktor Frankl. It's about Auschwitz. Like these people put in concentration camps, more like insane things happen. Which also, to be honest, helps me out on the mountain because I just fell and like busted my hip and my hip hurts now, but I still have to carry this pack and go out, etc. Right. After I was packing that sheep out, I got caught in the dark because I knew it was going to happen. I was just like, I'm freaking getting this thing. Whatever it takes. I fall and I cut my hand open and I'm trying to remember which hand it was. It's this one right here. I don't know if you can see the skull there.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so it opened my hand up decently. And you're like, damn it. You look down and you can see the bone. And you're like, blink. And it's easy sometimes in life to get all caught up on how bad it is right now. Oh, I got to carry this thing out. My hand's bleeding. I can see my bone. I got to tape it up with electrical tape. But then if you compare that to people that went through concentration camps, that had their wife taken away from them, they never seen them again, insane like stuff that I can't barely like grasp. Then in that moment, when your hand's open and it's like flapping like a little, you're like, this isn't that bad. Like how awesome do I have it?
I know. We've read the book Man's Search for Meaning on the podcast. I've done a few podcast episodes on Viktor Frankl's on that particular book. Same sort of discussion. The other day I was at Ryan Lamper's Western Hunting Summit in Montana, and I did this little run up a hill with a backpack. It's a little contest we had, and I barely took 3 steps, and I pulled like the tendon in my calf at the top of my calf, and it got tight. I couldn't. It hurt to walk a bit, and I came walking up the hill. I'm like, dang it, I pulled something, kind of a freak thing, and people are asking, well, are you going to go on the hike tomorrow? Because there was a bit of a hike and you're going to shoot your bow on this course. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to suss out how bad it is. I'm walking on a little bit. It hurts. And this gentleman that was there that had his leg, that his leg was gone, like up pretty amputee. And I was like, and he's like, he looks at me and he shows me his metal leg, and he's like, I mean, come on, dude. If I do it and I have one leg, a little bit of he's like, no excuses. And it does put it in perspective. There are times in the past when I went to the CrossFit gym for years, and there was a couple of dudes that had missing arms that were still doing clean and jerks, and dudes that had, again, prosthetic legs, and they showed up every day. And here I am with a little bit of a pain here or there. And it's like, yeah, I'm kind of weak if I don't show up. I mean, if they can work through what they have, I can certainly work through this, and it puts life into perspective. I was reading a book just the other day. It's called Blood and Thunder, written by Hampton Sides, and it's a book about Kit Carson, how basically how the West was, how we gained Texas and New Mexico and California and Oregon and Washington, and all the states in between in a span of like 4 years. America went from just Missouri, to the East Coast to all of a sudden owning all of it. And so in that span of time, how did that work? And Kit Carson was talking about being on the Santa Fe Trail, and he was with a crew, and a dude reached down to grab his gun to shoot at a wolf, and he accidentally shot his arm with the gun. And then he just, patched it up, but it got gangrene, it got putrefaction, it started to rot. And so they realized we're going to have to cut off his arm. And so
no pain meds.
So there's no pain meds. So then the next thing you know, they're all holding him down. They cut through the arm, through the dead flesh, the rotting, and then they sawed through the bone with a saw and cut it off. Then they cauterized all the arteries with a king bolt that was pulled from the wagon wheel that they had got, super hot. And then they covered it in tar from the wagon wheel to sort of plaster it up, and then amazingly it healed, and he didn't die from infection, and he survived. And you look at that and you're like, yeah, it sort of puts life into perspective when you read about Auschwitz and what Frankel went through, or the Gulag Archipelago. You start to realize, or anything from World War II or history in general, our society's pretty soft. We've got it made. And I think, though, that we are built as human beings to have adversity. We are meant to struggle. We are meant to do what you just said on that sheep hunt, in the dark, fall down, carry that load. We're meant to suffer. And when we don't put ourselves in places of discomfort, when we don't suffer, when we don't do those hard things, I think we lack fulfillment. I think we lack happiness. There's something that is in each of us that needs to experience that. It's in our DNA. And I think it's a shame that more people don't find themselves. I think that's why the community that we're a part of is such a great community, because you have all these people who have who understand the value in suffering.
We need challenges to overcome, because we're putting ourselves willingly through tests. So then when hard things do come, that we're more willing to stand. Like Jordan Peterson has said something that impacted me a lot, is we should strive to be the strongest person at our own father's funeral. And it's everyone else is going through it. In that day, that time of life, you should be there to help make their pain easier, instead of taking from them. You should be adding to them, because you're strong. This hurts you, but you are not going to let that hurt the people that you love that are still there. And I think we can. It's just like shooting. It's repetition, and it's the more hard things that we can do, the stronger we become. So when adversity does rear its ugly head, it's you know what, I got this. I can be the strongest person here to help lead everyone out of here. It's the whole if you boil man's search for meaning down, it's the only thing they can't take, they can strip everything away from us, and people's true colors come out. And he was saying, is the Freudian thought was society is what makes people different, and as you strip society, they come all the same. And I believe Viktor Frankl is correct that it's the opposite of that. As you strip everything away, the people that are not good, that are evil, become more prevalent, and the people that are good still remain good, and it's just easier to tell them apart. So as you exercise that muscle, your strength to be good, I believe, is stronger. You can tolerate more stuff before you come close to the hypothetical breaking point. So when something bad happens, it's like, you know what, I've done really hard things before. I can get through this.
Yeah, absolutely. A moment ago you mentioned how people, hunt the animal that excites you, or go on the hunt that you kind of dream about. What is the hunt that Caleb dreams about?
I would say I just want to do everything. I don't have one like I don't
No,
know.
there's not like one kind of like I guess unicorn that you're after, one sort of pinnacle achievement you'd like to, or experience you want to have.
So it used to be hunting bears, and I love hunting bears. Like I truly enjoy it. And then it was sheep, and I've done that. So now it's the more I've done, the more I understand it's just about the wild experience that goes into it. So just going to wild places that are just extreme as all can get out, that I know that either if I'm guiding someone, I have to be in such a place that I manage my own emotions and what I put out, as well as the person that's with me.
Yeah.
Or if I'm just going out by myself, that I can challenge myself against the mountain, and then understand the mountain will always win. So then it comes to a point of understanding that the hunt's going to be what the hunt's going to be. And it's about enjoying it and looking at the bumblebee, looking at the flower, like all this like hippie, sounds like hippie stuff, but it's actually pretty cool, is to do your best. And whatever your best ends up being at the end of the hunt, whether it's a 20-day hunt or a 2-day hunt, is what it's going to be. You did everything, you put in the preparation, and understanding that in life there's an element of luck, like or chance, or being blessed, whatever you want to call it. Because I think there's an ego game sometimes in the hunting industry, and in every industry. It's just human nature. I'm the best because X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you're really good. You've done the work to become good. But then also, why you killed that record animal was honestly a piece of luck. Like that animal had a vote in it. So it's just like understanding.
I like what you just said. The mountain will always win. And so, yes, you're putting in as much effort as you can, but at the end of the day, it only gives up what it will give up. And sometimes, there's just a little bit of luck that happened on that trip. You aren't saying that you're not putting in your hardest effort, but we have a film series that I want to drop in a couple of weeks, which is basically what you just said. The mountain will always win. It's all the hunts where we have spent in excess of 10 or 16 days hunting where we didn't get anything. And there's always one or two of those every year, but people generally don't know about those because nothing to share except a big long camping trip. That's all it was, just a camping trip. We didn't see an animal that was even close to worth taking and for what we're looking for. And we ended up spending a lot of days working so hard only to not get anything out of it in terms of the end goal, which was that particular unicorn we were looking for. We still got value out of it. Like you said, the trick is to value that experience even when the mountain doesn't give up its treasure.
And this is like coming from a guy that, pretty much has 100% success. I can think of one person that hasn't got an animal with me, and it's because they had to go home early, and we only hunted 6 days instead of 10. If they would have hunted the 10 days, I am very confident we would have got something. But taking what we were just talking about it and understanding that we are not God, we are not all powerful. so we can only control what we can control, and whatever happens from there is what happened. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So that's like, well, you can't. There's a certain aspect of, like, you can will stuff in existence because you work extremely hard. I'm not gonna accept failure as an option. I'm gonna freaking go down like insanely hard. I'm gonna spend way too, like, a ton of time behind my glass, moving, doing what I need to do, playing the wind, doing everything as close to right as possible. But when you make it all about the unicorn, you miss out on a lot of those lessons that are in between there. Like, I've seen it in guys that have gone out hunting. There's the guys that, like, super cool and understand that it's about the hunt. Yeah,
it's not about a guarantee.
This, yeah, it's about this process. And then when you get away to, like, we're not saying X, Y, and Z. And again, I'm pretty dang successful when it comes to getting big animals. But if you're in the mindset of, I gotta get a big animal, your experience, you missed out on 90% of that actual what's going on in between time.
Yeah. There's a certain, when you have the right attitude too, it's not that you don't work really hard, because we work our ass off, but there's a calmness about it at the same time. Like hunting with Stealthy Hunter, I've been out there where we're on a 10-day hunt, and then that's the last day of the season, and it's day 7 and we haven't found one. And it's like, yeah, but there's the calmness that we just keep working. We will. And it almost always happens, even though it happens on the last hours of the last day, it almost always happens for us. And so that calmness comes from accepting that, having that attitude that you're going to give it everything you've got, and that's all you can do, and then fate will take care of the rest. That's kind of it's a liberating feeling that allows you to then take in the hunt in a different way, I guess, what I'm trying to say.
Your perspective has switched on it, and I think this might be an okay way to articulate it, but it's like the embrace the suck, I guess, is I don't agree with that. I think what you have to do instead is, this doesn't suck. I enjoy hard things. Therefore, let's have fun with this. Changes the perspective of well, all of a sudden it's different. Like, instead of, I gotta get through this, it's like, I'm being dramatic, obviously. It's more like, let's do this.
We have a macabre sense of humor, making jokes. One of the things I wanted to throw on a t-shirt was, because this has been said more than once, well, as long as we don't fall to our death, we've got it made. Because there's been a few places where, or if we don't fall in the river and drown, we're good. We got it, because we found ourselves in situations that have a degree of danger, like to the point of death if you make a mistake. But the whole point is, when we're saying things like that, is we could focus on how hard it is and what's happening and so forth. But instead it's embracing, like you said, embracing that moment and saying, I love this. This is what it's all about. Like, yeah, this is a little scary walking across this little section, but I also feel alive. There's also an element of adventure here. And actually, I'm not shying away from it. I'm embracing it.
And understanding that this might be the last time you get to do that. And why I say that is, this sheep season, this past fall, me and Glenna dropped off at a staging point. We ended up shooting a caribou. Caribou gets shipped out, and in between this time, there was a guy that lands in. I would just use his first name for the families. Lands in a yellow super cub. His name's Doug. Doug's a really nice guy. we spent 2 days with him while we were waiting for the weather to lift to get moved to go start hunting the sheep, which is now the film that you watched. Doug's super cool. Nice to meet you, Doug. Good luck. You know, you're awesome. He just retired from firefighting. He's talking about all the trips that him and his wife's going to take, X, Y, and Z. But 6 days later, after we've got the sheep, a biologist gets dropped off. His name's Eric. Super cool guy. I really like the guy. He's knowledgeable. And he's like, hey, good to meet you, Eric. Good to meet you too, Caleb. Did you guys hear about the plane crash? I'm like, no, I mean, we just got back from hunting. We haven't, you know, I text some while I'm out hunting, but I try to like balance that because I don't want to do it a lot because you hear to hunt, not the text. And he's like, yeah, guy in a yellow Super Cub, X, Y, and Z was flying 2 days ago, and crashed and died. I was like, oh, fuck, was it Doug? And he's like, how did you know? I was like, just met the guy a little bit ago. And it's like, you never know when it's going to come to an end. And I don't do a good job at this. I'm working on getting better. So when you're in the middle of something, if you think about it, this could be the last time you get to do this exact same thing before your ticket gets punched. Whether it's your kids coming up and interrupting you at work. I don't have kids, but this example, or your girlfriend wants to go do freaking something silly that seems stupid. It's like, why would we want to do that? That could be the last time you get to go do that. And if you think about the stuff that you do in your day, it changes the appreciation for what you do in that day, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I gotta say, over the years, I used to, as I've gotten older, there's no real unicorn. There are some things I want to hunt a brown bear with a bow. You know, I want a bighorn sheep. Of all the sheep, for some reason, bighorn is the one that interests me. I'll go for a doll. I'll go for a stone, like all that. But it's something about the bighorn that I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And I get that in my head. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? We have some epic mountain adventures with the blue collar mule deer hunt. You know, we do a mountain goat hunt, which is far more affordable in some places, or go to New Zealand and hunt tar and chamois in some cliffs that were every bit as formidable and adventurous as any sheep hunt that you could go on. And over the years, but like you, I learned that it was less about the species and the experience. I can have, what I'm getting at is I can have the same adventures almost at a fraction of the cost by focusing on the adventure rather than the animal.
Exactly. So it's like if like I'm gonna do this like sheep slam at some point in my life. So if that is a goal of yours, don't write it off. Like figure out a way to make it happen. So I'm gonna preface that by what I'm about to say. Now, if that doesn't end up working out for whatever reason, just what you said, it's you can go out there and build that experience, that knowledge base of, hey, I've done X, Y, and Z, and this is awesome, in different places, and spend way less money and spend more days out in the field than going and spending $100,000 on a stone sheep hunt. So it's like you can go, like you said, go to New Zealand, go out there with some of the Kiwis. You're gonna go have a fun time. Go do a murder hunt. Like go build that time. Yep. And that's going to equate to that confidence that, hey, I've done all these things and I've done a good job at them. Now I can go in and continue to get better.
And I'll say this, you don't know where life is going to take you necessarily. And over the years, if you had come to me 15 years ago and told me that I would hunt all over the world, that I would go and take multiple mountain goats and go on multiple moose hunts and caribou, and that I would be able to hunt in some of the places I've been able to hunt the species I've hunted, grizzly bear in Alaska, I would never have predicted it. It just was never something I thought I would be able to do, both just for many reasons. And yet I found myself after staying true to myself, working hard, trying to follow dreams and so forth, that opportunities open up. Things happen as you develop and as you grow, and as you bring value to the world brings gifts back. And so you never know. You just keep doing the best you can. And I think, like I said, if you bring value to the world, then things happen. And it could very well be that I can easily afford 5 years from now to go do some kind of sheep hunt that today I think is completely out of my price point. At the same time, I'm so frugal. Like, I don't know that I could, even if I could afford it, do it, because I would think of all the places I could put that income instead, you know? But you never know. So it's kind of it's an adventure.
Well, it's what you just described is the reticulative activating system in the brain. I think is what the RAS system is what it's called. And it's like what you find important is what the brain will, because all the information that's in front of us is so much. So that subconscious brain filters out, and that's what we hear. It's like a good example is when you're in a restaurant and everything's background noise, and then someone says your name and you're like, what was that? Because that name's important to you. Or when you buy a new car, all of a sudden you start seeing them everywhere because now that's become important to you. So that same thing exists, and there's an element of I believe God blessing you because, like, for whatever reason he is, but there is an element of also that this is possible. This is something I'm going to do. Maybe I can't do it today, but someday soon I'm going to do this. And then when you have that mindset, it's not usually, sometimes it's not one big door. It's 100 little doors that you decide to walk into. Because you were paying attention, you were looking, this is something I am going to do, that all of a sudden you look back and you're like, holy crap, how did I get here? It was because this is possible. Like, I'm going to someday make this happen. Versus there's a guy that was, at one point I was thinking about hiring, older guy, did sales, and I decided not to hire him based on, he was just hard for me to be around because he was like the little guy, and I'm like, holy shit, dude, it's like, you are a man, whether you have $1 billion in the bank or if you have $5 in your bank, the reason why you haven't gone out and killed a big bull out west is because your mindset, the little guy. It's like, what even is that? It's like, we're all equal. We all need to do our best, and wherever the cards lie is where the cards lie. So if someone disagrees with me, I'm sorry, but that's how I see it. So if you're someone that thinks of yourself as the little guy, I encourage you to stop freaking doing it and think of yourself as a man created by God, and we're all equal. And then wherever the cards end up laying at the end of the game is where they lay.
Yeah. I think it's it's looking at it from an abundance mindset or a scarcity mindset. When you look at this and you say, when you look at the world and you say to yourself, it's kind of the old glass is half full versus half empty. When you look at everything that you do from the perspective of gratitude for what you have instead of focusing on what you don't have. I just feel like way too many people are focused on all the things they don't have, all the things they can't have. I could sit here and focus on all the hunts I cannot afford and will never get to do and whine about it all the time. Or I can focus on all the stuff I've already got to do and what I might get to do in the future and be super happy and grateful for what I've got. And I think I think it's the height of it's extremely toxic to think about and to dwell upon all the things that you don't have. If you've heard Jordan Peterson's lecture where he did on Cain and Abel, a Bible lecture where he compared the two, you have two modes of being as a human being. You can sit there like Cain and focus on all the things you don't have and how everything's not fair and how you're not as cool as your brother Abel and how you don't have as many friends as your brother Abel and how you're your wealth isn't as much as your brother Abel, and how everything isn't as awesome as your brother Abel. And you can sit there and focus and focus and focus and dwell on that and talk about how unfair it is, rather than maybe than Cain instead focusing on all the things that he does have and the differences and the gifts that he was given and the abilities that he has. Instead, he's focused on, he can't even think about that. All he can think about is what he doesn't have. And it drives him into bitterness, resentment, and even murder in the end, killing the very thing he wishes he was. He murders that ideal. And I think, the lesson there, as old as time, is don't be like don't be like Cain. Like, that's just a dead end.
Yeah. And I think there's only one thing, like what you said is perfect. One thing I would add is that Cain could have pleased God if he did the best that I think, I'm not God, so I don't know for sure, but Cain could have pleased God by doing the best he could, but he was trying to cheat the system, trying to cheat God, so therefore his sacrifice was not sufficient. And that's what it was. Like, maybe he might have never been Cain. He might have never been a good Cain. But if he was trying to be the best that he could possibly be, I personally believe that God would have been like, you know what? Your sacrifice is sufficient because you are doing your best.
And God, I think, basically says to him, yeah, you're where you're at in life because your sacrifice sucks. Because you don't put in the work. Because you don't do the things, to an extent. And I agree. I think life is what you make out of it. And when my wife had cancer years ago, and when we went through that period, it was a pretty dark time for me. And during that window of time, I found myself confronted with the situation and thinking to myself, I learned that if I could focus on gratitude, all the things I did have, instead of the fact that I might lose her, I might be a single dad, I might have 3 daughters to raise on my own after she's gone. We're dealing with her being extremely sick and all of that kind of stuff. Well, instead of focusing on all the things I didn't have and how bad the situation had become, I began to focus on all the things that I had been blessed with. 3 beautiful daughters, a wonderful woman that I had been able to spend a lot of my life with, that I wouldn't go back and change any of it. Like, if you had told me this was the end, I still would have picked it again, and realizing all of that, I realized that by focusing on how bad things were and how life wasn't fair, or how I wasn't having things turn out the way I had wanted, I was missing out on my 3 beautiful daughters who were right in front of me. I was missing out on all the wonderful things that I did have in my life because they were drowned in my pity party. But once I got past that and I realized, no, I'm grateful. If she's gone tomorrow, what a great ride it's been, and what a great ride it's going to be going forward. I'm still going to have my daughters, and hopefully, things continue to. I just looked at it was immediately a different feeling in my life to say, come what may, I'm thankful. I practiced that gratitude for what I did have, and it swallowed up all the sorrow and all the sadness. And I found over the years that anytime that I feel overwhelmed or things are hard, when I focus on all the things that I've had and how great my life has been, and I focus on my gratitude, that all the stuff becomes very small in the end. Like, all the trials start to get swallowed up and really overwhelmed by that humility and that thankfulness.
Oh, that's like so. I mean, I haven't had that experience, so like that. I can only imagine that's 100% right. That it's like you got to look at life for what it is, and how can there be, like, where was the good in this, and that's what you did. And that's like, I mean, I post not trying to push my faith on anybody, but God's not going to put more than what you can handle. And therefore, you are the strongest person that you could be for your daughters, for your wife, because you could have went down that other path. You were at a crossroads. You could have gone down the path of, woe is me, this is going to be terrible. And that would have been harder on your wife. That would have been harder on your daughters. But instead, you're like, you know what? I am going to be grateful, and I'm going to be a strong man. And I mean, I commend you. I salute you for doing that.
I think it's really easy to become consumed by resentment and bitterness. It is in life. It's really easy to go down, to take that path because there's no work involved. You can check out. You can punch your card and be like, okay, all I'm going to do is drink booze from now on. You know what I mean? Like it's, in many ways, it seems easier, I should say. But it's
selfish.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, people should go check out your well, if they want to see you in action, actually, and they haven't seen the movie, they could go check you out on the Eberlestock film, A Full Measure, right? And that's on, is that on their YouTube channel?
That's on their YouTube channel. And then also I got several bear hunts and a few moose hunts and stuff that I've filmed in the past on my YouTube channel. And it's just Rise Up with Outfitter Services. A lot of fun hunts on there as well. I think if you type in my name, it will also pull up. So there's, I think there's probably been like 10 or 12 films made, but counting the Eberlestock film. So there's people want to go see some fun hunts, is they out there.
Gotcha. So people can go follow outfitter.services, and then they can go follow Caleb Stillians as well. And I highly recommend that you do that, folks. Go check all that out. And then it looks like, do you have a link tree or anything? You should get one.
Yeah, I need to put one in there.
So if I want to find your YouTube channel, can I get there from your Instagram, or do I need to?
You just go to YouTube and type my name in. I'll
come on, Caleb.
I know, I'll put that link tree in there. I've been slacking.
Okay, so Caleb Stillians on Instagram, on YouTube. So I see Rise Up with Outfitter Services. Is that your YouTube channel?
Yep, that's it. Exactly.
Okay, so Rise Up with Outfitter Services. When I typed in your name, it also came up there. So I can click on videos, 10-foot monster brown bear hunt from a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that one was one that I filmed with my cell phone. So if you guys watch that, it's still a fun video, but the production quality is not super high.
Those are some of my favorites, Caleb, usually. All right, so cool. There's some YouTube content out there, and then there's lots on your social, and then folks can follow you on Instagram. And I highly recommend that they go and get signed up over at Outfitter Services and start looking around and maybe dream about your own future adventure, and then shop around a little bit and perhaps even get one. There's a couple on there I'm looking at. I'm eyeballing a couple, like, I'm not going to say it because I don't want anybody else to snatch it from me, but there's a couple right in my price point that look pretty cool. So yeah.
And if you can't buy anything today, add it to your bucket list so you can be like, go in there and check out and follow up with them.
That's cool. All right, Caleb, thanks for coming on the podcast, folks. Check them out. I'll put the links in the description field of the YouTube video. Thanks again for tuning in, and stay gritty.